Good. Welcome, everyone. Due to the virtual format of today's meeting, I'd like to start by reminding or providing some guidelines. So as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the Human Services Commission webpage and available for viewing. And moving forward, all Human Services Commission meetings will be recorded. As you've noted, we have participants attending by computers and others may be attending by phone. For all meeting attendees, please speak clearly and pause frequently. State your name each time before speaking. Just a second, please. And I got interrupted by my house, maybe to tell me they're having a blackout. Just a second, please.
Thank you, Pat. Well, I'll step in here, say hi to everyone. Welcome. The majority here are new commissioners, so very excited to have you all here. It looks like you're good to go.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I was just, my family was just telling me they're having problems over there, and I know that already. So anyway, so I was saying, please speak clearly and pause frequently. State your name each time before speaking and mute your mic when not speaking. And if you're having technical issues, try by joining the meeting using a different device, either a phone or a tablet. And use the call-in information in the meeting invite to call into the meeting. So today we're gonna take attendance, and actually it's already been noted who is here or who is not. And since we have new members, maybe we'll do introductions and take it as a roll call. Okay. I'm on the mic, so I'll start by myself. I am Pat Sadangachu, and normally I'm the vice chair for the Human Services Commission. And today I'm going to be chairing because we have not elected a new chair. I've been on the Human Services Commission for a year. It's going to be 2 years in a few months here. And it's my passion to do human services. I do that for my line of work. I do that out of work. So we provide a better environment for where we live. And thank you for joining us. Next, on my screen, I see Anna.
Hi, everyone. Hannah Roberts here with the City of Issaquah. I'm the Human Services Coordinator and your staff liaison. Welcome tonight. And I will go ahead and pass it to Mari.
Okay, thanks, Hannah. Maury Edwards. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm an older white guy with white hair. I wear glasses, and tonight I have a black shirt on. I am joining this with you in anticipation of a great session. I really want to be involved with my city. I have lived in Issaquah since 1985, and I'd like to contribute. I'd like to give back, and this is my opportunity. I've heard great things about this commission from Manny, and so I'm looking forward to a pretty cool time with you. And so I guess I'll pass it on to Jamie.
Hey everybody, my name's Jamie Longoria. I live here in Issaquah, and I was interested in joining the Human Services Commission because I've lived in Issaquah for about 17 years. I'm a single mom with 3 boys, and I've been raising them here in Issaquah. And I have a lot of lived experiences using some of the human services that the city of Issaquah provides to some of our residents. And now that I'm in a better place in my life and I've grown professionally and personally, I'm in a place where I can give back. And I just feel like my lived experiences can help other people and help improve maybe some of the things that we already have going in the city. So I look forward to working with you guys. I can't see who's next, so somebody's going to have to call on the next person.
I see Karen.
Hello, this is Kieran. I use she, her pronouns, and I am new to the commission and very excited. I have lived in Issaquah all my life, which is probably not a very long lifespan in comparison, but I love the city and I'm very excited to kind of see it from the other perspective because most of my experiences are with the types of organizations that the city supports. And so it's interesting to get more of a back end view. And also, I am sick, and our community really values service, public good, and the civic duty. And that is a perspective that I'm excited to bring to this team. And I will pass it to Manny if he hasn't already went.
Hello, my name is Manuel Brown. I go by he, him, and honey at times. But I've been in Issaquah since '96, I believe, and been worked in the area as wrestling coach at the high school, and been involved with many of the citizens that are now of age, coming into out of the high schools, and just enjoy working with each and every one of them, and want to continue bringing Issaquah to a point where everybody is welcome. And I believe what we got here. I see is Monica something. What?
Thank you very much, Manny, and welcome, commissioners. It is so nice to have you, new commissioners and existing commissioners. My name is Monica Negru. I'm the Human Services Manager here at the city. I work with Hannah on an ongoing basis and with the rest of the Human Services team, one of which we are going to introduce a little bit later tonight is also here with us, Kaylin Wood. She's our newest member of the team, and we are gonna introduce her here during the meeting. But we are honored to work with you. I've been with the city of Issaquah here for about 3.5 years now. My background is in behavioral health. Prior to being with the city, I worked for about 15 years in nonprofit mental health, substance use, and vocational services in particular. So very, very nice to have you. And with that, back to you, Pat.
I think we
roll
have.
call in.
Okay, so I see someone logged in. Kaylin?
Yes, Karen's our newest staff. Definitely she can introduce now as well.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Karen, can you hear us?
Yes, hello. I'm Kaylin. It's nice to meet you all and to be here. Very excited to see this realm of the work and interested in hearing all of your beautiful thoughts and experiences. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Kaylin. Hannah, are there any public in attendance and any comments?
Pat, no, there's no attendees in attendance tonight, and have been no public comments made.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. And since we have new commissioner, maybe I should remind everyone to indicate a desire to speak by sending a chat to all panelists and typing either question or comment, and then wait to be acknowledged by the chair. And also, please do not put any substantive comments in the chat, just in case someone is an attendance, some public we have public attendance. And for everyone on the on phone, we will check with you from time to time to determine if you have comments. And you can also press *3 to raise your hand, I think. Okay. So now, Hannah, please, if you can proceed for the rest of the agenda.
Yeah, and one more thing, Pat, I would like to note here that we have a few commissioners in with an excused absent. That includes Madeline Fish. She's a new commissioner, so you will all get to meet her in her next commission meeting. We also have Trish Bloor, who is a regular commissioner. She will also be joining us. And then Sarah Seriano, I will be sending out a message after our meeting, but she has had to step down from her regular position due to her family moving out of state. So she's also with an excused absent. And then we have Jaime, who is en route and should be joining us late tonight. Thank you, Pat. The next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. Would you like to walk us through that, Pat, or would you like assistance?
Please do that. I know we have 3 sets of minutes today, so please do assist with that.
Okay, great. I might have actually Monica in for a little bit of help for the minutes because I don't know if I've done them either, but I will give a go at it. So tonight's a little bit different. We usually always look at our minutes from our last commission meeting the month prior and provide, ask if there are any recommendations for any changes or edits to be included. For tonight, as you can see, we have 3 minutes. 2 of them are which from our special meeting that we had for our equity training. The first one was in April, and then the next one when we had quorum was in May. So we have meetings for that. And then we did not have a regular April meeting, so you will also see minutes from March 16th that also need to be approved. So I'll give you a minute to quickly look through those and give a minute to see if there are any recommendations for changes. If not, I will take a motion to approve them as is. Monica, what's the verbiage?
So actually,
I move that we approve all 3 of these as written.
thank you, Maury. So definitely, if you have a motion, you can do motion. That's a great motion. Then somebody else can second that motion.
This is Manny. I will second it.
Thank you, Manny, for seconding it. And then now I think you can just express your vote. If you agree with that, then you can also ask if there's any discussion, if anyone would like to discuss or make any recommendations or edits. If there's no discussion, then you can just move to approve the minutes. And we can go about this in 2 ways. We can do a roll call and ask for your name and tell us how you vote. Or if we want to speed up the process, we can just say, please let us know if you do not approve the minutes. And then we can do that. And if nobody decides not to approve, then we would assume that there are no changes and the minutes are being approved unanimously. If there are no edits or comments or objections. So I see no objections in the chat or nobody on the screen. So I think we can safely say that with no objections, the minutes are approved unanimously.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so that takes us to the next item on the agenda, and that will be on the staff report.
Thank you, Pat. And so definitely this is Monica again. We can start with the staff report. I'll start with the very first part. Again, new commissioners, you're going to see that in staff reports, typically we are going to have 2 sections. One, it's going to be if there are any updates from the mayor or city council. This is when we either bring any notes from the mayor or council, or we update you on past council meetings when we had human services actions, or upcoming council meetings where you can also certainly participate and attend. So with that, in terms of updates from, I apologize. And then the second piece to the staff report, typically Hannah covers that, is if there are any other human services related updates for that. So with that, I'm gonna proceed to some updates from City Council. On April 26th, we participated in a council study session where we presented and we talked with City Council about the Human Services Grants Program, and we asked their feedback and input on direction on goals and funding and any policy recommendations. This item will actually go back to City Council to a committee meeting in June, and we will update you on that as we move forward. Speaking of June 22nd, there's going to be a committee meeting where we are going to have several human services items. In addition to the Human Services Grants Program, we are also going to talk as part of the Human Services Strategic Plan item. We are going to bring some updates on homelessness and services related, which actually we are going to talk with you a little bit later tonight. So I'm going to go in more detail a little bit later on that. And then we are also going to discuss with City Council some responses and recommendations regarding tenant and landlord protection options based on a survey that we are currently conducting. And then with that, I think these are the major updates regarding City Council and Mayor. One note for those of you who've been participating in council meetings, just wanted to let you know that recently our City Council transitioned from study session models to committee meetings, whereas in addition to the regular council meetings, now we have 3 committees where 3 council members participate in each of the committees. They are smaller groups where we go with items before taking them in front of the entire City Council. So just a process change for how council conducts the work, and we would be happy to provide you with additional details. And if there are times when you make recommendations to City Council, then we can help you and inform you on how to go about that. Thank you. I think that concludes my portion of the staff report.
Thank you, Monica. I will discuss our Human Services and Commission updates. So you'll see here, there is a bullet point in regards to transition in person. So that is something that we are anticipating. However, since it's been posted, there has been a change in that deadline and that time frame. So as a Human Services Commission, we are hoping to go back into person. Here it says July, but we actually are now pushed back to September. So we will continue to meet virtually. However, expectations will change where now commissioners will be meeting in person again starting in September, and we will provide details on where that location is. It'll still be on the same day, 3rd Wednesday of the month at 6:30 p.m. But the expectation will be commissioners will be in person. However, we will be a hybrid model for public attendance. So attendees could join virtually and join our meetings as well. So more information to come on that, but just want to put that on everybody's radar. We will still be continuing recording our meetings as well. And then the other thing I just want to invite folks to just know about and maybe share with their communities is that there is a board and commission extension for a few more boards and commission until May 31st. So if you have anybody interested in serving in that capacity, please share that link. As well as for the city employment, we are hiring many positions, especially in parks and community services. So also wanted to share that we're looking for some great people to join our team. So with that, that concludes the staff report, and I'll give it back to Pat.
Thank you. Thanks. Are there any questions from or any comments? I don't see any in the chat. So we go straight then into the agenda items, and the first one will be back to you, Hannah, about the Joint Eastside Human Services Commission Equity Training Debrief.
Hey, Pat.
Oh, I think, sorry, just a second. I see Manny has a question here.
Right.
Yes, just want to check in with Monica about the change for the council's study sessions. How is it, I guess, worked out? Who's in each study session? Is it, do they have particular groups? Do they mix them up every now and then, or how's that work?
Yeah, that's a great question, Manny. I think so. We have a total of So each of the committees has 3 council members, and I believe that perhaps they serve for at least a year. And I have to admit that I don't know all the details, but yes, they have been, council members have been assigned, and they decided internally on who serves on each committee. I'm just not sure on for how long are they on each of the committees, if they change each year, or for how long. But I would be very happy to check with our city clerk and get back with you on that.
Okay, thank you. And for Hannah, is there a hybrid for in September? Is that for just attendees, or is that for panelists also?
Great question, Manny. Yeah, to clarify, the hybrid in September that we'll be transitioning to, that virtual option is just for attendees. So for commissioners, right now the expectation is to join in person. If there's, we also have our stipend program. So again, I can pass on more information. Just want to encourage folks to look into that to help supplement now coming into person. So commissioners in September, as of now, unless something changes, we will be meeting in person.
Yeah, I asked the question because let's say you're traveling, but you're free. Is there a way that ruling is so that you can call in, or virtually,
Yeah.
or is it?
Yeah, that's what we're working on right now, is kind of fielding those details out. Great question. We also have that as well. Monica, that's what I know so far, is that we're working on it to see if we can get more information, if that's going to be an option.
Okay, and one more thing, Monica, I know that Maury was an alternate. Is he still an alternate, or is, I know there's a space open, so I'm just trying to figure out how that works.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, for now, he's an alternate because if you remember, all the positions are recommended by the mayor, and then council approves those positions. So based on the official approval from city council, Maury was an alternate, but you are absolutely right. We do have currently an open position as a regular member, as Sarah had to step down. And so we are in the process of working with our city clerk. So then in anticipated, I believe it's going to be in June or July when commission recommendations will go back to city council. So at that time, we will make a recommendation for one of the alternate positions to move into a regular position. Meanwhile, though, every time we have an opening on the regular position, then one of the alternate members serve as a regular position, right? And so I believe based on the roster, that would be Maury because he's the first alternate position. So automatically Maury serves as a regular member. All that being said, we hope in our Human Services Commission that we don't vote quite often, and whether you're an alternate or a regular member, your voice and the weight of your feedback is and input is just as valuable regardless of position. So did that help to answer your question, Manny?
Yeah, thank you, and welcome, Maury. I do know you, so
thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I think we're going to take one statement from Maury so we can move to the next agenda item. I see your hand up. I guess that's for a question, Maury.
Thank you, Maury Edwards. Just for the record, if you want to make me a regular commissioner instead of an alternate, I'm up for that. That's it.
I think we should vote on it.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, to you now, Hannah.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. I just wanted to spend briefly some time to debrief some of the training that went down. So first off, thank you, everyone who was able to participate in the equity training. Again, April 7th is when we had the part 1 equity training, which was more of a listen session. If you didn't get a chance to attend in person, thank you if you had an opportunity to watch that online. And then there were an opportunity for part 2 equity training with the Eastside Joint Commissioners. And that was more of an intimate setting, more discussion and opportunity. And really, again, the purpose of it was to kind of help prepare commissioners as they're about to review these grant applications to really have an equity lens and to understand the approach, in an equitable way. So I wanted to debrief on that training this evening. Again, keeping comments at, 3 to 5 minutes maximum. We're going to take about 15 minutes, if not less, to talk about it. But I'd love to hear commissioners just feedback of, takeaways that they had that they're hoping to use some of what they learned in that training for the grant application review process. So just an open discussion is what I'm hoping for the next 10-15 minutes. Anybody would like to start, you can comment in the chat or you can raise your hand. Mari.
I'll break the ice. I'm really impressed that that's what we led this year with, was that equity training. I come at this through an equity lens, and that's the reason that I'm here. And I was very impressed that that's what we did first, and looking forward to taking that into the work. That's about all I have to say about it.
Thank you, Mari. Pat, I see your hand.
Yes, just as Maury, I was really impressed, and it was rich exchanges and rich, having those different scenario given to us, and just having us reflect about our own implicit biases. And this is, I don't know how we will review these grants without reliving the training. It was very effective, I would say, and I really liked even the second part on the hands-on exercise that we did. It was really good, and the other experience was to having other commissioners from other cities, and just by random I met one of them, and I was like, I know this face. Oh, that was the training. So it's, and that was after the first training. On the second training, they just pinged me on the side. Hey, Pat, nice to see you. So that's really rich, having that togetherness for all some of the cities around. Yeah.
Thank you, Pat. Really appreciate you sharing that. Very neat to make connections that way and people nearby. Manny, I see your hand.
Yeah, I'd like to also express the fact that our host was amazing, and they did an excellent job with making us dig down inside to figure out where our biases were. I'm not sure I agree with the tests I took, but guess that's what it's all about, right? Trying to figure out where you are. So I agree with both Maury and Pat that I thought it was a very effective way to start off with our new joinees. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Manny. And then I don't have any comments. Karen or Jamie, would you like to say anything? Just don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just want to give you some room and space to speak if you had anything to add.
Yeah, I can go. Sorry, I'm still learning how to use the WebEx thing.
That's okay.
Yeah, I've been through that training a couple other times. I've just worked at other organizations that have provided that training, and I do. It's a very good reminder, and it's just a very good lens to go in with when we're gonna look at these different grant applications and review them, and kind of keep that training in mind, and keep everything equal and equitable. So I thought it was a great training, and I love that you guys provided it prior to us reviewing these. So thank you.
Thank you, Jamie, and then Kieran. Yeah, go for it.
I already went through my power outage last week, which is why I wasn't able to attend. But luckily, I have been through that training, I think, and so it was a good reminder to prepare to have that perspective in mind. And I think that there's always just so much more work that we can do, and it's so easy to lose that perspective. So at this point, I think I should just like tape it on the monitor or something.
Excellent. Thank you, Kieran. Well, thank you all again for doing the extra meetings in April and in May. Again, very important work, important lens to have as we have a big project ahead of us. So I'll give it back to Pat to keep us moving forward.
Thanks, Hannah. The next item on the agenda is the grant review process. It's going to be a long one. It's an important one on our agenda today. And Monica, please, can you lead us?
Thank you, Pat. And actually, I'm going to invite Hannah to start us off this evening, and I'm going to jump in just in a few minutes.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Alrighty. I'm going to share my screen here. Yes, like Monica said, we're kind of going to be tag teaming this presentation. So welcome everybody. This is our 2023-2024 Human Services Grant Application Review process. This is our big kickoff. We have the big project and the big responsibility and task ahead of us to review the grant applications for this next cycle and make some pretty big decisions. How are we going to fund? Who are we going to fund to really serve our Issaquah community and meet the needs of our community? So tonight we're really hoping to just lay down the foundation of what the process is going to look like and kind of talk about what our next steps are. So let me move us forward. So again, like I said, we're just going to go over some of the background, just the basics of our Human Services Commission and this process. We're going to review the applications for this next cycle. We're going to talk about then our process, what our approach will be, and have a discussion and a presentation around that. I'm going to also be showing you folks an example of an application to help kind of get people started. And then really, what is our timeline and our next steps going to look like? All right, so for our background here, so Human Services, if you're not familiar with the Human Services Commission in Issaquah, it was created in 2007. And really the role that we have here in our commission is to make recommendations to our mayor and our city council regarding our human services funding to our community. So a little bit on the left, you can see how the funding has increased over the years. And so that is a part of our commissioners advocating for the needs and allocating, making recommendations on where funding goes there. And as far as our human services grants, so again, this is a biannual cycle, which means the application is good for 2 years. It really is a collaborative process with our community partners for nonprofit organizations to apply to human services to serve Issaquah residents and have service unit goals. The Human Services reviews these applications and again makes these recommendations. And just fair warning, it's a tough task ahead of us to make those. And again, Monica and I have hopefully set everyone up to be successful to review these applications and help you make these decisions. And so you are not alone in this recommendation process. And then really what we will be doing is presenting to our council And they'll be making ultimately the decision and the approval of the grant funding. So for our human services grant, so when nonprofits apply, they go through this Share One app. So you'll probably hear us talk about that a little bit. Really what that is, it's a portal or a website that allows nonprofit organizations to apply once to multiple cities. There's 16 cities who are a part of this collaboration. So we have the Eastside, South, and North. And the needs are typically grouped in 5 goals. We'll talk about that. It's a little bit for Issaquah. We've really focused our goal areas on our human services strategic plan. So we'll go in more detail about that. Basically Share One app, you'll be seeing a little bit of what that looks like. I'll provide an example. And some changes to note here is that equity lens has been included in our process. Once application and grants have been approved, and there are contract requirements for these nonprofit organizations. So just kind of an overview of the cycle and the process. So for us, we really started off in our community needs, which again was really established when we created our human services strategic plan. That first half really focused on what did we hear in our community in our outreach approach and what are the community needs. We've identified 4 main focus areas, and again, we'll go in more details about that. That now leads into the funding priorities, which again, we will talk about that in more details. We received the grant application that closed end of April, and now this is where we're at. Here is our grant review. And that's what we will be doing here for the next couple of months. And then by August, end of August, we are hoping to have our funding recommendations sent to our city council, and then our city council will approve in September along with our budget. And I'm going to pass it to Monica.
Thank you, Hannah. Hello, commissioners. Again, this is Monica. I'm gonna talk a little bit about just what you see on your screen. It's a brief snapshot of the grants that we received last funding cycle and the applications that we received last funding cycle. I'm not going to go in much detail because I would like to focus more on what's going to be similar and what's going to be different this time around. So to give you though an overview, last funding cycle, this was in 2020, we received 91 applications, and the request totaled a little bit over $1.38 million in requests. The Human Services Commission at that time made recommendations to fund 57 programs, and we had a total of $500,000 to allocate. As Hannah mentioned earlier, we had divided all the applications in 5 goal areas. You see them on the screen. It was food and roof overhead, supportive relationships, safe haven from all forms of violence and abuse, healthcare, mental health and behavioral health, and physical health, and education and job skills. You will see the goal areas are going to be a little bit different this time, just because now we have a strategic plan that helps us focus the needs specifically for Issaquah. So with that, we can, again, this is just a snapshot for you to have that background information to see what we did during last cycle. I want to highlight one other thing before we move to the next slide, and that is, since, as you saw, we had $500,000 to allocate and we supported 57 organizations. What that means is that we were able to support a larger number of organizations, but the downside of that, as you can guess, is that the total amount that we allocated was pretty small, right? So we supported more organizations, but with less funding for each of the organizations. So I just want to call that out because I would like to talk with you all about that in just a bit. Can we go to the next slide, please, Hannah? So with that, just wanted again to provide a snapshot and an overview of what to expect and how this process goes. We started, as Hannah mentioned earlier, with the community needs assessment that we conducted last summer, which then informed our strategic plan that was adopted at the beginning of this year by City Council. Next, we started talking with some of you. Some of you were not here, but we started talking in the first quarter of this year already about funding process and getting ready to release the grant funding applications. And then this is where we are now. We are in the second quarter where now we received the grant applications and we are ready to start reviewing them. So we will work in the next couple of months, again, on reviewing those. And next, we hope to make our recommendations by the end of August to the mayor, who the mayor then will include them in the city budget process for City Council in September for City Council recommendations. So the city budget process will begin sometime in September, and it's going to take us to almost the end of the year. Typically, it's towards the end of November when City Council approves the budget. And so once those City Council approves the recommendations, at that point, we will start the contracting process with the organizations that received the awards, and all of the contracts and funding then will start in January 1st of 2023. And then typically you're going to see 2023, it's going to be a monitoring year when we as staff, we will work with organizations not only to enter into those contracts, but supporting them in making sure that they meet the requirements that we establish in those contracts. We conduct monitoring and technical assistance and whatnot. So I'm going to pause in case there are any questions before moving forward. Feel free to put questions in, if you have question or comment, in the chat. I don't see any, so I'm gonna move forward, but please don't feel, oh, I think I see Mari, your hand is up. It's hard to see when we present, so feel free to just put question or comment in the chat so we can see that you have a question or comment. So Maury, go ahead. Okay,
Maury Edwards. I read that HopeLink was getting $350K and there was another organization of $150K. Now that adds up to $500K. Is that the same $500K that we're talking about here?
Such a good question, Maury. Such a good question. Thank you for bringing that up. So what we are talking right now about, it's just our traditional human services grants. During the pandemic, the city provided additional funds for human services related needs. So the ones that you're talking about, that was rental assistance, and that was in addition to the regular funding process. So yes, absolutely. Just the most recent one was rental assistance. Such a great question. Yeah. I
have another question, if I may.
Yes.
Okay. What is the pilot outreach and what are the pilot grassroots grants?
Another such great question. So those were two pilot projects that we tried last funding cycle. So we started the pilot outreach, homeless outreach program last funding cycle, and that since then that turned into a regular program, and it's one of our programs in human services. I'm going to update you at the next agenda item on that. Great question. And then another pilot was the grassroots, where we tried to pilot a different application for small grassroots cultural-based organizations who may not have the capacity to really know the entire Share One app process and go through those steps. And through that funding cycle, we supported 2 organizations who now moved up to being able to apply to the regular decision process. So great questions. And Manny, I see you have a question.
Yes, also have 2 questions. First off, so the grant applicants, are they budgeting themselves for every 2 years, basically? I mean, if they're expecting to get it from Issaquah, is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, so they're budgeting for 2 years when they request the grants. And yes, every 2 years they would need to reapply for those funds.
Okay. And secondly, so the funding increased in the last few years, as you showed in that chart, but how's that increase relate or to the number of applicants that applied? Let's say 5 years ago there was 10, but then there were 91. So cost per applicant, did that increase or what?
No, not necessarily. And so these are actually good questions to have and to kind of like decide. And those are some of the questions that City Council now is deciding on how to go about creating a policy for human services and how do we establish the amount of dollars that we have for human services grants, right? And then actually in just a few minutes, I would love to talk with you about our approach and how do we go about funding these many organizations with the funds that we have. Because I think no matter how much the funds were increased over the years, the needs that we see in the community and the requests are always so much higher than what we have available. And typically it's double or very close to triple the amount that we have available. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those are the real challenges we are going to face for sure. Any other questions before we continue? I see none. So, okay. Thank you, Hannah. We can, if you don't mind putting back on the slide. Okay. Thank you. So with that, next I would like to provide you with a brief snapshot of what we have currently. So what you see on your screen, these are the actual number of applications that we received this funding cycle. So currently we have 81 applications that we received from a total of 49 different organizations. I'm going to pause here to tell you because you may ask, okay, so how do we have 49 organizations and 81 applications? The applications that we receive are program-based. There are organizations who have more than one program. Let's say somebody, more, you mentioned HopeLink, right? HopeLink is a large organization. They provide, let's say, rental assistance, but they also provide food assistance, and let's say they also provide housing. So that means that they might have 3 applications for 3 different programs. And so that's why you see the number of organizations is smaller and the number of actual applications is larger because one organization may submit more than one application. And with that, then the total amount of dollars requested is $1.376 million. And for this funding cycle as well, so far we have $500,000 still. Again, City Council, this is due to go back to City Council in June, and we will learn if the amount will change or if we'll stay at $500,000. Next slide, please, Hannah. So a little bit about your role as commissioners, right? First, we will invite you to review the applications. Because we received 81 applications, something that we did last time and it worked. Instead of asking you all to review all of the applications, we will form subgroups. And typically we are going to have 3 subgroups. So you're going to be assigned to one group and you will be asked to review the applications from your group. If you have capacity and interest, absolutely you will have access to all of the 81 applications and you are more than welcome to review them. However, because of the large number, we also try to encourage you to have a divide and conquer approach to where you will be asked to review 20 to 30 applications that are going to be assigned to your group. So we hope that that's a little bit more manageable with everybody's capacity and time limitations, right? So we would work with you and we would hope that you will review the applications. We would also hope that we are going to work together to score those applications. We are going to share in just a little bit the review card for you. And we are going to work together as a group to have deliberations and make recommendations on which programs should the city of Issaquah fund to better serve our community. Next slide, please. So this is the discussion that I was hoping to get to for us to decide, and we don't have to have a final decision tonight, but we would love to spend a few minutes. As I mentioned to you earlier, in previous cycles, and this was a very difficult decision for the Human Services Commission in the previous years, the approach that the Commission took was, we only have $500,000 and we have many, many wonderful organizations. We would like to choose to fund as many as possible, even if that means they're going to have a smaller grant. So the approach was, let's try to fund as many, but it's kind of like we call it the peanut butter spread, right? Smaller amounts, more programs. One suggestion that we received from our mayor during this time, and city council expressed concerns about not being able to move the needle at the community level with really what the needs are. And so one of the things that they encouraged us to think about was, could we consider funding fewer programs, perhaps for larger amounts that would help us move the needle? Again, we don't need to take a decision, or perhaps you have even a third option or a third idea. But I would love to spend a little bit of time in, based on the equity training that you all participated in, based on what you see in the community and your knowledge and expertise, what are your initial thoughts on this? And we can take off the slide for a little bit for a brief discussion. And Pat, I see your hand up.
Yes, thanks, Monica. I don't know if this is Pat Sadangachu. I don't know if in the last we've talked about this before, but at least that idea has been in my mind, where maybe adopt a hybrid model where we have a certain percentage for smaller grants and the rest for bigger grants. And this is why, as we see a lot of our, when we go through the DI lenses, some organization at the grassroots level might be starting, just getting into, not very confident yet, and giving them a small amount of the grant allows them to grow. And however, we want to see impact, and we can go for bigger grants for those that can show us impact. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you so much, Pat. Such a great suggestion. Jamie, I see you have a comment as well.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad that this question has come to the table, because as I was looking through the grant application summaries and looking at all of the different things that where people have applied and stuff, and while I would love to support each and every one of these things, really, I think our community is in need of some very specific things due to the pandemic, due to rental prices, due to housing issues. And so, in my opinion, and I'm definitely open to hear other people's opinions, and it may change my opinion, but just from my initial opinion from looking at this document and the asks, I see that there's some real, there's some places that Issaquah's probably been supporting for many years that are really, deep rooted in our community, that probably need continued support, like Friends of Youth and those type of programs. But there's some other things in here that I'm just like, huh? Why would we, and I'm reading everything, and maybe I'll have to ask more questions, but I'm like, why are we giving to some place in Tukwila? So I definitely, just from my initial review of everything and without talking to anybody, I do think that it's a really good question, and that we all should really consider whether smaller amounts and more programs is the better option, or even, like Pat just suggested, allocating a percentage of money to different programs, is a great idea too. So I definitely think that there's more discussion to be had surrounding these questions and ideas that people might present. But I definitely think it's an important question for us to make a decision on. So that's my input.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And absolutely, I think, and all of you, as we are going to start diving into the application review, I think definitely this is going to be an item for us to discuss also next month. And we will also bring back some recommendations based on your suggestions tonight. Kieran, I see you have a comment.
I think Pat and I were on the same brainwave because my first thought was, why do we have to pick between one or the other? But I love that Jamie brought up the fact that we are kind of coming out of the pandemic, which, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it because every time I say it, I feel like things just go bad again. But I feel like this is the point where people are really trying to look for programs that will facilitate that transition. And based on my experiences working with vulnerable populations, I think it's important to uplift new organizations that are trying to meet the gaps in the community. But I think just because of the nature of like what people's lives look like right now and what their needs are, and because of how much overlap there is in the categories that these applications are for, I lean towards protecting the organizations that do have those deep roots in the community, because I think in the mindset of someone who is looking for rental assistance or childcare assistance or needs healthcare assistance or is trying to find like shelters and stuff, they are not going to be able to get the same level of service from new organizations as they are from these giant pillars of the community. So that is where I lean right now. And I think that there's definitely a lot of room to move towards, you know, like allocating that percentage for smaller, newer applications. But I have a lot of love for the people that have been doing that work throughout the pandemic and are currently in the process of getting people out of those tough positions.
Thank you so much, Kieran. Great suggestion and input. Thank you. It sounds like Maury, you may have a comment as well.
Thank you, Monica. Maury Edwards here. I met a fellow a few weeks ago who goes out to look for the homeless with a table and a laptop and a hotspot, and he has a nurse with him. And he was telling me that there's a tension between coming up with the metrics, the results that you need to turn lots of people, and the actual good that you can do long term by having relationships. He says it's all about the relationships. And I thought about, you know, if we spread the money really thin, maybe we'll be helping people like that guy. But more than likely, we need to have those relationships, and we need to build those relationships, and not just with the people that are the old tried and true that have been here forever, but also with people that are actually in those communities that can actually do something for us, like this guy that goes out on the trails with his table and his laptop. Just something to keep in mind.
Another great suggestion, right? It's so many organizations, small organizations, often, especially the cultural-based ones as we learned, they do so much work, and perhaps they might have more challenges in providing the data that we often look for, right? But it's good to not lose sight of the important work that they are doing. Thank you. Any other comments? I don't want to put you on the spot, but those of you who did not have a chance to comment on this, if you have a comment, we would welcome it. Manny, Jaime, but also don't feel like you have to have a comment.
No, absolutely. Sorry for being late. I got stuck in traffic. I drive from Snohomish County to Issaquah. So
Welcome.
everybody, good evening. I just in my experience, I do tend to like the small amounts versus large amounts when it comes to, you know, and it just means more work. But I think what Maury's talking about too is you're working with more grassroots organizations to spread out work that way. I'll give you a good example. I work for the courthouse for Snohomish County, so we get money from the state, and that just dedicates to like the big players. And I've been trying to fight. Can we fight for grassroots? So we get some money, where some of those grassroots organizations are probably doing a lot of more of the work. They're just not research based or evidence based, and then it becomes an equitable concern. And so that's just from what I've seen on my side. And I would love to focus on those grassroots folks that are really putting their time and attention to the Issaquah community. So I would lean on the less large, but more on the small amounts for different grassroots organizations. Because what ends up happening is for grassroots, if they obtain funding, is it opens a door to other funding in terms of, hey, if it's getting endorsed by the city of Issaquah, Human Services getting money this way, that's like a credibility in a way, and then they can kind of vocalize and get other grant monies for their budget lines. And so I don't want to lose sight of that as well, because there is a lot of these nonprofits, especially not the mainstream ones, is they obtain a lot of momentum and leverage when they hey, you're getting funded by the city of Issaquah for human services for this amount of money, and it opens up their budget lines. So I would hate to, and there's pros and cons to both sides. I get that, but I think having it to the large amounts, then it would kind of, I don't know, it would kind of put a lot of the smaller organizations kind of out of that arena. So it's I wish we can give money to all of them, but we can't. That's just the circumstances we have. But I would kind of lean on in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So much appreciating your feedback, Jaime. Manny, do you have a comment tonight on this, or?
Yes, thank you. Just listening to everybody, there's definitely something to say about each going its direction, but I do like what Pat was saying. I also like the idea that we take and put in each group, whether it's for homes or health or whatnot, the group, and then figure out, since we do have a strategy for Issaquah, what's important to Issaquah, figure out, okay, this group's going to get X%, this group's going to get X%, this group's going to get X%, and figure out from there how many we can help in each group from there. So that's an idea as far as I can see.
Right on, Manny. Thank you so much. I love the idea of like having percentages as well for the different groups. So appreciating everyone's feedback tonight. I think definitely we'll take your input and we'll come back with some recommendations. But also let's continue thinking about this. We don't need to have all the numbers figured out for a couple of months for sure. But just some tough conversations and questions for us for sure. So with that, let's move forward, because I realize we are running a little bit late on time and we have quite a bit to cover. Next slide, Hannah, please. Thank you so much for sharing. For the review process for all of you commissioners, we are hoping to use the equity tool. We incorporated, as you're going to see in a few minutes, the equity tool that you learned about in the equity training. We incorporated that in the review cards. We are going to talk a little bit about those tonight, and we are going to definitely dive deeper into that starting next month. And as mentioned, we are going to review the applications in groups. And with that, I'm going to pause and invite back Hannah to share with you a little bit on how you are going to be able to access the applications. We have 3 ways, and Hannah's going to walk us through those very briefly. But please know that we are also here to provide assistance. Don't feel like you're going to have to remember all of this tonight. This is just an overview.
Great. Thank you so much, Monica. Yes, again, I'm going to be following up with an email with some detailed instructions, links to access all of this, and best options, and of course available to talk one-on-one if you're having any technical issues. So here, our option 1, we have a portal view, which I will show you here briefly. And then we also have a SharePoint method where we have all the PDF applications that are you can access through there. And then we can also, of course, provide paper copies if anybody's in need of that. We don't recommend it. You will see these applications are quite large, and if you're reviewing 81 of them, that's a lot of paper. So if we do need to accommodate, though, we are happy to do that. But just if you're able to use the access of the portal and the SharePoint, those are great options. So I'm going to, out of this, and I'm going to show you online. So here we have, this is kind of the easy one to quickly go over. Here is our SharePoint. Again, City of Issaquah. This is where all of our 2023 Human Services Grant applications are saved in alphabetical order, and you can just click and review the PDF through here. And it's saved by organization and then title of their program. So that is one way you can access it. The next is our portal. So you will be receiving, this is Share One. You've seen this logo before. This is an online review tool where you can either include comments or just review. You will have to, I will send instructions on how to access this, but basically you'll just need a password and you'll have your own individual login. You can see here, you have the applications. I've reviewed one, and once you have reviewed one and submit, you get this green saying done. So it helps you track which ones you have viewed and which ones you still need to review. So I'll go ahead and open one just so you have a visual of what it looks like. So here you can look at the application, and there's a lot of information that's important to review. So you have the application here. You can see how much they requested last cycle and then this cycle, and which cities they've applied to. You'll also talk about, I think this is important to note, if they're increased funding, they should provide an explanation of why they've increased their funding. Then they really jump into the program. So this is a great way to help understand their program in more details. You'll see in the Word or in the document, there's a brief description, but this will provide more details. You can see here, ask questions, and they provide the answer. So you'll want to take some time to really review the information in regards to understanding the program, understanding who they serve, and all their helpful information, and who will be served by this program, how is your program promoted, what will be the impact. So we're looking at, again, outcomes measurements, which again is an important piece of understanding how will we look at success, how will they be moving the needle. Few more questions, and again, just for time, I'm just scrolling through fairly quickly, but happy to dive in this deeper one-on-one if we need more time. And then again, additional information. And then the last thing you'll want to note here is you have a budget, and this is kind of more so just listing their numbers and information here, so that's also part of that. And here is their service unit. So this is kind of what measures their outcomes. And again, this will be as an attachment. If you want to add a comment, you can add it here. And once you click this button, submit, then you're going to get that done. You're going to get that done saying it's been reviewed. Otherwise, you can just save it as a draft. So again, I will, for time's sake, I'll go ahead and move us forward, but if you have questions, we can have more conversations on that. So I'll get us back here. Thank you for your patience. You can see here, this just lists out what the grant application, here's kind of the main information. Oops, sorry. The main information you will be seeing as far as the program information, impact, and then the required documents, that budget information. So that just lists that. So next, I want to spend some time here to really look at our review tool. So that's going to be in your agenda packet, and I can also share it on my screen. Monica, would you want to talk more detail about that? Do we want to use this time to talk about how we are using this tool?
I think for now, I would love to provide just a brief overview and encourage commissioners to review the actual review card that you have in your packet, and reserve time for our first meeting in small groups to go through those cards a little bit in more detail. again, just for the sake of time on one end, and just also we do have time next month if we want to make any changes to that. But absolutely, I think based on recommendations from last funding cycle and 2 funding cycles ago, when commissioners used actual numbers and they decided that really it wasn't helpful, we transitioned to kind of like a hybrid model where we have this green, yellow, red review cards where we have a set of criteria for each of the colors, but instead of actually having scores, just putting applications in, at least in the initial section, in piles of like, we absolutely don't recommend funding, and these are the reasons. These are then applications that we absolutely recommend funding, and then yellow is like, it's like perhaps these are organizations that we need to further discuss, or perhaps if we have additional funds, we would like to recommend these. So again, these are the types of reviews and tools that we are going to have in place. And we can certainly pause for any questions now, or we can just move forward and discuss in more detail in the small groups.
Yeah, and I'd like to just add to that, Monica. I do want to say that we did take a lot of your recommendations from our last meeting in regards to this review tool. So you'll see a few the list is much longer this cycle compared to this. This is just the previous picture of it, but if you take some time to look at it, you'll see our human services strategic plan has been included, as well as tools from the equity tool, from the equity training that we recently had. So that has been included in green, yellow, red format. So please take some time to look at that. And yeah, if there's any feedback or recommendations to add or anything, but just wanted to note that there.
Yeah, great addition, Hannah.
Yeah, and pause for any questions or comments.
Now we are throwing a lot of information at you tonight, Commissioner. So again, just please know we are going to be here to support you every step of the way. Okay, I don't see questions for now, so let's move forward, Hannah. So with that, some of you were part of our strategic planning process, so you're quite familiar with the strategic plan. Some others are brand new to our group. And if you didn't have a chance yet to review our strategic plan, Hannah will share that with you. But what I want to highlight is that we have 4 priority areas in our strategic plan. One is housing continuum, which includes housing affordability and homelessness. The second one is physical and behavioral health and services. The third one is language access and cultural services. And the fourth one is community resources. So what we try to do in our attempt, because we have 7 commissioners and 2 alternates, now we have a total of 8 commissioners. We try to create no more than 3 groups, and therefore we combined 2 of our strategic priorities into one for just the review applications. What that means is that we would have 19 program applications for the housing continuum, a total of 34 applications that would cover physical and behavioral health and cultural and language access, and then community resources with 28. And so this is what we would love for you to start thinking, which group you feel that you would like to be part of more. We are also going to share a couple of guidelines because we do have a few commissioners who have a conflict of interest. They either worked in the past or they serve currently on one of the nonprofit boards, so they are not going to be able to review certain applications. However, if you have a preference to be in one of these groups, please let us know. We would love to hear from you. I believe by next week at some point, Hannah can provide you that detail in the email in which group you would like to serve on. Don't think that 19 applications would make it easier on a housing continuum. That can includes homelessness, and that's never an easy group to review. Definitely 34 program applications. It's more than 19, but so it really depends on your preference. It depends on your expertise, your passion. So just let us know, and we will try to have you in the group that you prefer to. Next
Great.
slide, Hannah.
Sorry, Monica, I'll just add one more thing to that. Our thoughts again with our numbers in 3 groups. We are planning to have 2 individuals for Housing Continuum, and then 3 for these 2 other groups review those applications. So just wanted to give out those numbers. And again, I'll email folks, but would love an email response as soon as possible with your top choice and maybe a second choice, just in case we need to move things around. So thank you. I'll move us forward.
Thank you. And so again, you heard this before, but just a brief, more detailed timeline of what's next. We hope to have our next meeting on June 15, our next Human Services Commission meeting as a large group. And then in August, we hope to meet perhaps a couple of times in subgroups. And in July as well. Sorry, I jumped from June to August, but July and August in meeting in small groups. We were planning not to have a regular Human Services Commission in July, so we just meet in the smaller groups, and then we come back as a larger group in August. At that point, it's where we may or may not, depending on where we are, we may or may not have 2 meetings in August. But we do hope to have everything completed by the end of August and submit our recommendations to Mayor Pauly. And again, they're going to be a lot. We are going to be flexible with depending on how the reviews go, right? So next slide, Hannah. Thank you. And so then in next steps, again, Hannah mentioned you're going to hear quite a bit from her with a lot of information. We are available to meet one-on-one as well, but let's focus on the group assignments next. Start reviewing the applications and accessing them. Let us know. Let's work to make sure that you're able to access those applications. And our ask is, if by June 15, if we can have a goal of perhaps reviewing at least 5 applications on your own to get familiar with how things are going, and then we can come back in June as a commission to start using the scorecard and look at what edits we may need to make, like kind of like piloting 5 applications and see how things are working. Anything else that you would like to add, Hannah, or are we good on this?
This is our last slide here. Yeah, and again, the concept or idea of having everyone review, we just want to make sure that the process is smooth for anyone and identify early on if there's any adjustments that we need to make. So
Great.
That concludes our presentation.
Thank you.
Are there any questions, comments?
Thank you, and looking forward to it.
I love your attitude, Jaime. Thank you. We're so excited as well.
It's very, very exciting. Okay, thank you, commissioners. I am looking at the clock. We do have about, it is 8 minutes before 8 o'clock. We do have 2 other agenda items, and I would really, really love to provide you an update on our homeless outreach services. And I would love to propose that since we don't have all the commissioners present, if you are open, we could postpone selecting a chair and vice chair until the beginning of next meeting. Is that something that you would be open to entertaining? This would also provide you an option to meet the rest of the commission, get more familiar, and also for the sake of time tonight. Any objections, I should say. If there are objections to this, let us know. If not, perhaps we can pursue with that. Okay, I see no objections, so I'm gonna take silence and just move on, Monica. Let's keep going. Okay. So in that case, the next agenda item for us is to provide an update and a brief conversation with you commissioners on our homeless outreach program. We don't have a presentation for you on this. We did include in your agenda packet staff report and update, and I would like to review that a little bit with you and provide opportunities for questions and comments. So as Mari very well noted at the beginning of the meeting and asked, what's the homeless outreach pilot program? So this started last funding cycle in 2020 when we saw an opportunity to bring to Issaquah, specifically to Issaquah homeless outreach services. And the need at that time came from the fact that through our human services grants, we were funding partially small grants. Now you're familiar with that. We were partially funding 3 homeless outreach programs on the east side. But we learned that all of those programs were overwhelmed by the amount of work, by the large region that they had to cover in the entire east side. And they really did not have capacity to come and conduct homeless outreach to Issaquah. We talked with one of the organizations and they were saying that they were able to come to Issaquah only every 6 weeks. And so that was not meeting the needs in the community. So that's how the idea of piloting a homeless outreach program specifically for Issaquah came about. And so we set aside money, a larger amount, right, for a more meaningful grant. And we piloted the project with our partners at the Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank. And the project started off really well. And then since then, in the meantime, also here at the city, we launched a behavioral health program in collaboration with our police department. The behavioral health program was assisting community members who were calling 911 for behavioral health crisis. So our human services behavioral health specialist was assisting those folks. And then we noticed an opportunity to combine the behavioral health program with the homeless outreach program, because what we learned was that many of the calls that our police department was receiving through 911 was because of folks who are homeless. So that's how last year we combined those 2 programs. And some of you have been here and you met our very first behavioral health and homeless outreach coordinator, Amir Shabana, who's been now with us for a year. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to join us tonight. But for those of you who have not met him, we'll make sure that he's going to join in one of the upcoming meetings for you to meet him. But through his work, we started really learning what homelessness looks like in Issaquah. We were able to do more meaningful outreach, get to know people, get to build some meaningful relationships. With not without challenges, to say. As you may know, housing, it's a real issue everywhere in the region, but more so in Issaquah. Affordability and the cost of living are very, very high, and so resources are pretty scarce. One of the positives and highlights of the program this past year, however, was our collaboration during the emergency weather events. In the last year and a half, we had a couple of times this past winter, but also 2 years ago, really cold and low temperatures, when with our homeless outreach program, we were able to place for a week, even 2 weeks or so during that severe weather. We were able to place homeless folks on a temporary basis in housing through our partnership with Motel 6. And so through that partnership, we learned that, of course, the needs in the community are so much bigger than we have resources for. We learned through our engagement with homeless folks that sometimes we engage with them, we offer services, and unfortunately, there are no shelters available on the east side. With the COVID numbers increasing, most often our shelters were at capacity or they had COVID outbreaks. And even if we are lucky to find shelter space, most often those who have been homeless in our community for a long, long time, they just don't want to go in another city because this is the place where they are familiar with. They know this place, they call this place their home, so they don't want to go. And so from that idea to the other, we continued our collaboration with Motel 6, and currently we started exploring a longer term partnership, another pilot. So we are thinking about piloting a longer term partnership with Motel 6. Let's say trying to rent, let's say, 12 rooms at Motel 6 in Issaquah, and try to provide a mini transitional center for our folks who are homeless, providing them an opportunity to be off the street for more than just a night or so, perhaps a month or a couple of months, for as long as they need, until we are able to work with them into a more viable housing situation. So that is one of the things that we wanted to touch base with you tonight, to kind of like hear your initial reactions. We also plan on we started having great conversations, not only with Motel 6, who's very, very open to this idea, but also with some of the nonprofit partners and shelter providers in the area to seek their guidance as we frame up this program, and as we hope to also go to City Council in June for an initial conversation. And I said a lot, I would like to pause, but before I pause, I also want to mention something else and invite Kaylin to, again, turn on her camera. I mentioned Amir was our first behavioral health coordinator. We are very, very fortunate that as we piloted the project with our Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank, and now we transitioned this position into the city as a city position, we were able then to hire a second staff, and that is Kaylin, who's joining us tonight and who just started this week with us. And actually, she's transitioning from the Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank. So I would love to pause and give her an opportunity to introduce herself. And then after that, I would love to hear any reactions from you all from what I just said. Thank you. Welcome, Kaylin.
Hi, thank you all. Thank you for welcoming me, and thank you, Monica, for the warm introduction. I'm really excited to be here, and it's been really great to hear all of your thoughtful responses to everything you guys have been. It's great to see this side of city work, so thank you for everything that you guys do. I started at the Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank in 2020 as the AmeriCorps member, and pretty much saw the need in the community for this kind of engaged outreach work right away, and was able to help the pilot program at the Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank really grow and show what the outreach can do, what supportive relationships can do, what allowing someone to take their time to decide what they need to do for their life and supporting them on that journey can do. And I'm really fortunate to join an amazing team at the Human Services. And it's been a really great week to jump in, and I'm super excited about this work, and it really touches a personal note for me. So thank you guys so much for having me, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Thank you very much, Kaylin, and welcome again. And Jamie, I see that you have a comment.
Yes, I think that's a wonderful program. And you know, I know that there's a lot of people who feel very differently about homelessness and housing homelessness people. I do want to say that I think the city of Issaquah in and of itself and the homeless people that we have in our city is a little bit different, in my opinion, just from my personal experiences with the residential homeless people around here. You know, I see more of people who really have settled down here, who have been here for quite some time. You know, it's not your typical homeless people, in my opinion, just from what I've seen. And so I think, you know, just looking at our city and the homeless that we have in our city and how we can help them, I really like your Motel 6 like proposition and idea, and how you've been doing that. And I think that's going to go really far. I know a lot of other cities are doing similar things with older motels. And I've seen, you know, that happen as well. Like in Kent, I know for sure they turned that COVID building into a homelessness apartment type thing. So I like the idea. I love it, actually. And I think it will, you know, move forward. And I think that the homeless people in our city, if they want it, because I know there's some that have been, you know, downtown for a very long time who don't want shelter. But I think that if they want it and we're able to help them, I think it's going to be a good program.
Thank you very much, Jamie, for that support. So much appreciated. And Maury, I see you have a question.
Thank you, Monica. Maury Edwards here. So you mentioned that I love this idea of Motel 6. I think that's a great use of a resource that we have in the area. You mentioned that transitioning people after possibly even a couple of months into more viable housing. Do we have more viable housing? Is that something that's available?
That is such a great question. So one of the small resources that we had as viable options recently, through our partnership with the new King County Regional Homelessness Authority, we were able to successfully receive about 12 housing vouchers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. They are very similar. The Regional Homelessness Authority issued a few months ago housing vouchers, which are very similar with the Section 8 vouchers, which provide permanent housing for folks who are homeless. So it was kind of like a rapid housing model. So that was one of the options that we had so far. We are certainly hoping for more. And we are hoping, again, we cannot do this alone, right? While we need services and resources for Issaquah, we also know that we are part of the larger regional system, and we hope to have some support from them as well. You're right. Resources are very limited, and especially in Issaquah because of the high rent and high cost of living. So that's where we are now.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. Very good question. Any other comments and questions on this?
Sorry, quick follow-up question on Maury's question. The 12 vouchers that you mentioned, would those vouchers be able to be used in Issaquah, or are they based or?
We are already using them, and so we use them wherever the person is interested, and they are finding rental. Some of them we were able to use them in Issaquah, some of them not. So each of the voucher comes with a maximum amount that it's allocated to the person, and sometimes we were just not able to find rental in Issaquah, and although they are from Issaquah, we had to go and find something in a neighboring city. But a couple of times we were able so far to find some Issaquah options as well. So just depends. Yeah, great question. And with that, you also have it in your packet, and I'm happy to also put the link in the chat as well. From the work that we were able to do so far in trying to gather data based on feedback that we received from the community and city council, wanted to share a brief dashboard that we launched recently that shows the number of people in Issaquah that are homeless that we connected with since we launched this program. Also shows the number of permanent housing that we are able and temporary housing that we are able to connect them with, the types of services that typically people need, but also it shows the gaps in services and the services that we often try to connect people to, and we just don't have those services available. So you have that in your packet, but I'm also going to put it here in the chat, and Hannah can follow up also with an email as well. So we are just at the very beginning of this work. We learned a lot during this first year, and we are certainly excited to continue. I'm very much humbled in continuing this work. And with that, if there are no other questions or comments, I wanted to tell you next steps. We are going to continue conversations with different providers, with different partners. We are going to go on June 22nd to have an initial conversation with City Council. We are going to certainly bring back this item to you as well over the summer as we continue to develop it. I think, again, I don't see other questions, comments, so I think that concludes this item. Thank you so much, commissioners.
Thank you. Great.
Yeah. So
thank you, everyone. We are really about 8 minutes past the time here, and I'm thinking, I don't know if there's any other business, and maybe just a quick minute and make it really quick and let everyone go back to their families. And if not, maybe you should call to adjourn the meeting at this point. Monica?
Sure, we can certainly adjourn the meeting if there are no other questions or other items. Yes, we can adjourn at 8:09.
Okay. Meeting is adjourned at 8:09. Thanks, everyone. And